My name is Paul Leininger. I'll be hosting the webinar today, and we're excited to have all, looks like we're up to 70 people this morning with us today. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, during the presentation, I'm here to help. Also, we'll be taking questions this morning as we go through the webinar, so just right there on the right-hand side of your interface, there's a little question bubble. Feel free to ask as we go along. We've got people on the line. And so as an intro, and we'll go to the next slide here, we have three speakers today. Elizabeth Page. Elizabeth? We've got Jamie Gibson and Lee King. And so with that, I'm going to hand things over to Elizabeth, and she's going to take you through our agenda and a couple other things.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so thank you again, Paul, for getting us started, and good morning and good day to everyone. I just wanted to add to Paul's welcome, and I did scan through the list of registered attendees, and I saw many familiar names. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet yet, I do want to ensure you have my contact, and Jamie and Lee's below. We'll make sure you get these charts, but feel free to reach out. We'd love to know how we can help. So for the agenda today, we have the topic you all joined to learn more about, the C15 Release 16, and Lee will go through that here in a few minutes. But after Lee, Jamie will talk a few minutes about building a business around your C15. So that section is based upon customer engagements we've seen throughout the year and how customers are leveraging pieces or all for some additional solutions to monetize your broadband that you've been burying and secure your networks end to end. So kind of putting a lot of pieces together for you. But the last agenda item, I want to put a special plug in for that. So we do appreciate any feedback we get at the end of the survey. So between Lee's C15 presentation and Jamie's section, we have some questions at the end, and we're looking for your feedback. It's a good opportunity to give us a recommendation on the next release of the C15 and content. So Lee's team is going through the list now, looking to prioritize which content is going to be included. And many times through emails coming in the door or direct conversations, content that our customers have suggested are brought into the development cycle. So please take advantage of the survey section and give us that feedback. So your input for the C15 release coming up can have your input considered as well. And in addition, based upon Jamie's presentation, we've got some survey questions, and your input there will help us understand which items that Jamie spoke about you would like to hear more about. And based upon that feedback, we'll put together some more online sessions, some more webinars for 2020 to make sure we're all engaged on those items. So fill out the survey at the end and give us that feedback. That we do, take that information and sort through it and make sure that we're trying to address the feedback and volume that we receive. Please, Lee, could you please advance the slide? All right, and then the next plug that I wanted to put in is for our annual global customer meeting. It's called Perspectives, and the date is planned for June 7th through the 11th in Miami. And I'm not sure how our marketing and events team is going to exceed what they did this year, but I'm sure they're already working very hard to make that happen. So save the date on your calendar. We have not sent out the formal invitations yet. They'll be going out soon. It's very widely attended. A large volume of customers in our regional markets attend as well. If you're not familiar, what we do, Ribbon brings together our customers, our partners, maybe complementary vendors like IP phone providers for a few days to collaborate. And we host targeted sessions to get feedback on and to collaborate really on industry events, trends. So you're up to speed on the development we're doing, and we get to hear your feedback real time. We also have focused discussions specific to our regional service provider space. So, the customers that are on here now, we have breakout sessions specific to this market. All of the service providers can collaborate. But in addition, we bring in the executives into our regional sessions, and it's a great opportunity for our executives to hear directly from you, our customers, and back and forth discussions so we can ensure that the solutions that we're building enable us both to succeed. We also have a lot of product demos and live demos of our products working. A lot of the products you'll be learning more about. There's a lot of visualization, so the ability to meet with the product and solution developers real time, see it working real time. That goes a long way in really understanding what we're doing with respect to end-to-end analytics and visual analytics with respect to your network, and the ability to drill down to very specific troubleshooting and customer usage. So anyway, there's a lot of value in attending, and my request is if you could mark those dates down, June 7th to the 11th, and we'll send out the invitation starting here in first quarter. With that, I will now turn it over to Lee King to get this started.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about release C15 Release 16, which went GA in late October. That's the primary discussion. I'm going to talk a little bit about just a couple other things first. I go to user group meetings all the time, and one of the things that comes up is what's the best way to contact us? We've recently changed our phone number for support. So 833-1 is the correct number to use. We still use the express routing codes for C15, DMS10 that we have always used. If you have a T7000, if you work through the voice response system, you will hear a prompt for that. And there's also a prompt for emergency recovery for after-hours support. A couple of other items that we keep bringing up is that some of these systems are getting upwards of 10 years old, and fan filters have been clogged, and we've seen some overheating components, and really encourage you to talk to your sales prime, sales engineer. Make sure that you've got clean filters and that you get replacements if needed. And also a good system hygiene thing is to cycle your spares through. Make sure they are all still working. Looking forward at release 16, so as a corporation, we have a thing called a Java signing certificate, and it has to be renewed every 3 years, and it basically says that you trust the company that's providing this. We just renewed ours as a company in November, so we've included the renewed signing certificate in release 16. If you have an older release, you could get a warning message about that certificate being expired, and you can just ignore that warning. Once you get release 16, it will go away. We also discovered that with Java version 8 update 231 that our GUI doesn't find call history server files, and the solution to that for now is to just not get that latest Java update. It's that patch is the problem, and we're still looking into what to do about that particular thing. So easiest way to work around it is just defer the update till later. So release, our normal release cadence is we put out a release every year, and our releases are active for 2 years, and active means that we do not only we do support, but we will put patches out if we find something that we think needs to be changed. Once a release is retired, if you call for support, we'll still help you. It's just that we won't be able to patch it after it's gone, after it's retired. And release 14 will retire at the end of this month, so just a few more weeks left. Release 15 is generally available. Release 16 is generally available now. And release 17, as Elizabeth said, we are planning that as we speak. If anybody has requests for content that they think would be interesting to consider, if there are regulatory issues in your area, things like a state PUC is requesting something, let us know, and we'll take a look at that and see if we can include it in our release 17. So here is an overview of release 16. It went generally available on October 18th, and we currently have 47 sites in service. I expect that we'll have over 70 in service by the end of the year. You are encouraged to go to the Ribbon portal and schedule your upgrade. I think we're probably already full through the rest of this year, and they're scheduling out into January. But you can go in there and get a time slot reserved. I expect that we will have over 200 to 300 sites running on Release 16 by the middle of next year. Our primary content for this year, the big feature is StarShakin, and I call it 1.0 because this feature is evolving. There will be changes, and we're already planning some stuff for Release 17. I'll go into a bit of detail on StarShakin. We've added a SIP location parameter. This was a mandate from a Texas PUC and some others. We've added that. This year, Ribbon acquired Edgemarc, and we have done some interop with some of their products, and also extended the interop that we've done with other products within the Ribbon portfolio like PSX and 5400. And then, of course, we always do customer request, and I'll talk about a few of those on the next few charts. I'm not going to go into all of these in detail, but this is examples of some of the requests we get from customers. A lot of these are things like just to make managing your switch easier, to be able to put more meaningful names in the descriptions of trunk groups, for example, to put in capability to generate reports for information that you may need for the PUC, stuff like that. We get these requests all the time, and we fit in as many of them as we can. So here's some of the examples we've got. As Elizabeth said, we'll send out the charts after this webinar. Here's another handful of requests we got. This last one, MGCP 32 character connection ID. We had a customer that had a particular MGCP gateway, and some of the functionality wasn't working on it, and it's because we weren't putting in the connection ID the same way the gateway was sending it to us. So we fixed that, and that solved their problem. We actually did some interop in our lab with them before we released this content to the field. Another call processing feature, the list command. This was a request to help with some PUC reports that customers do. SIP Enhanced 911, this was a mandate from the Texas PUC, and it's to provide more granular detail of the location of the calling number in a SIP header. So it's very, from a C15 perspective, all we are doing is processing that header. We don't provide the location information, we pass it through to the PUC. Excuse me, to the 911 provider. So for C15, it's very simple to configure. All you do is go into overlay trunk group and turn that on. This is an example on a Polycom phone where the location information was configured, and the stuff in yellow is all the information that was configured to define exactly where that phone was. And then here's a trace of that call as it goes through, and you can see where the information is provided in the SIP header, and that will be passed on to the PSAP. So StarShakin is the big thing we're doing. This is a component of nuisance call mitigation, where StarShakin is essentially, there's two components of nuisance call. One of them is the ability to block nuisance calls, and another one is the ability to determine if the originating number has changed somewhere in the call. And the way a lot of nuisance calls get answered is because they changed the originating number to look like your neighbor is calling you, for example. And there's capability now for a SIP within a SIP network to try to detect and flag when that has occurred. This, I think Jamie's going to mention this a little bit later, there is legislation working its way through Congress that will likely mandate at some level that there be compliance with robocall and nuisance call mitigation. In Canada, they've already enacted legislation on that, so this is a requirement for switches in Canada. So the way this works is there's a new word here called attestation, and what that does is indicates our level of confidence that the calling number is accurate, that it has not changed from who originated the call. So for example, full attestation is where we own the subscriber, we own the line, we own the calling number, we know that it originated on our switch and did not change. And then a gateway attestation, a level C attestation, is a call that's coming into us that didn't necessarily originate on the C15, on your C15, and we don't really know whether that number is valid or not. And then partial is, for example, you have a PRI, PBX, and it may or may not, it may come from your switch, but you may not have had complete control of that number. So those are the parameters that we use, and I'll show you a little bit more about how those are configured later. Here's the basic infrastructure for the way StarShakin is handled. And on the originating side, the switch, the C15 or C20, does what's called tagging, and that's where we put the attestation indicator, either an A, B, or a C with the call, and then we pass it into the network. And at that point, it goes to an SBC, and the SBC passes it further up in the network to a authentication service switch, which could be the PSX, and that assigns an encrypted certificate to it, and then it passes it on through the network, goes on through a intermediate tandem if necessary, and then at the terminating end, the SBC goes back up to a verification service and says, is this call valid? Is this number unchanged? Does it match the certificate that goes with the call? And if so, then there's a verstat header that's passed through to the terminating side. And at this point, what a C15 does is passes that header on to the SIP endpoint, and the SIP endpoint can decide what to do with that information at that point. We have tested this in our lab with Polycom phones, and they display the verstat header. There are other phones that may display a more rich explanation of what happened with the call and their confidence in it, who's making the call, things like that. So at this point, a C15 does not block any calls. It only passes this information through to the SIP endpoint. So that's the basic structure of StarShakin. And from a C15 perspective, we're on the front end where we tag the call. We're on the back end where we deliver the verstat header. And we're, at this point, all the products that are shown on this slide are generally available from within Ribbon. There's another product that we are working on, and this is not for a C15 is not generally available yet, but it will, Ribbon Protect will start to add analytics and more value to what's going on with StarShakin. Jamie will discuss this a bit more, but it starts to work with the PSX and starts to provide value by blocking calls that are known to be nuisance calls. So StarShakin in the network level is a relatively complex feature. However, on a C15, the configuration of it is very simple. Essentially, all you do is buy the feature and you turn it on. Then I've mentioned the attestation levels. If you go into our technical publications, there's an explanation of all of these index values, but what we did is went through and said for every type of call, here's what we believe the requirements indicate the attestation level should be. At this point, these could be changed by a customer. These are the default values that we recommend. It could be that at some point as this feature evolves that the FCC or someone will mandate what these levels are, and we'll have to hard code these. But today, these are variables, and these are all default values. If you look at the TPs, you can see for each index what type of call that is. So once you've turned on the feature, the only thing it takes to enable this on a C15 is to go into trunk group and say, do I want to do attestation for this? And if so, where do I want to get the origin number? Do I want to get it from the var_stat header? Is it a from header, or is it from the p-asserted identity? That's essentially all you can do with the trunk group, is say, where do you get the header or the calling number information? For a PRI, same thing, either p-asserted identity or the from header. And then for a gateway, the same thing. So it's very, very simple to configure StarShakin on a C15. So that's what we have in Release 16. Again, it's generally available. I encourage everyone to go and schedule your upgrade. Release 17, we are starting to work on that. The content that we are adding already is a change for StarShakin to where the C15 will generate the orig ID header. Today with Rail 16, we rely on a PSX to do that. We're going to do it ourselves in a future release. We're going to work with, do some interop with Ribbon Protect. We've got some changes to the OS for our call history server that we're working on. And as always, we're looking for customer requests. We'll include anything that we think is is a useful thing that applies to a number of customers. So again, here's my email address. Send me an email, please, with whatever request you would like. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jamie Gibson.
Thank you, Lee. Great update on the C15. And I know for many of you on this call, the C15 is one of the most important elements in your network, key to providing all the voice services in the network. But what I really wanted to spend about 5 minutes on was talking about building kind of a business around your C15. Some things that you may or may not have considered augmenting your network with to help you grow and expand your business. One of the first things that a lot of customers may or are not aware of, and I was a little bit surprised, is the partitioning capability of the C15. So if you have extra capacity on your C15 and you may have smaller IOC neighbors that are considering alternatives for replacing infrastructure, or maybe their network is just too small to justify a standalone soft switch, you can partition the C15 and share that capacity with them so that they can provide the same type of features that you have in their network, but leveraging the infrastructure and the investment that you've made. And we can certainly go into a lot more details on how that's done and the capabilities around that. Moving beyond that, key to expanding IP services outside of your C15 is IP peering with other service providers. This opens the door to exchanging high definition audio traffic as well as other UC type services. So Ribbon has a wide portfolio of SBC products, either appliance-based or software-based, to help expand the interconnection of that C15 with other service providers. And as Lee had mentioned earlier, to comply with the recent legislation around StarShakin, Ribbon offers both an on-premise as well as a hosted solution to sign and verify calls. In addition to that, we provide a comprehensive robocall mitigation solution. Just a little bit of an update on that. I'm here in Washington, D.C. at a 3-day StarShakin conference, dealing with a lot of the issues facing service providers in this area. As you may or may not be aware, the House and the Senate just released before Thanksgiving a combined bill bipartisan that mandates StarShakin as well as robocall mitigation. We expect that it could be signed as early as this Friday by the president. In that bill mandates that service providers implement StarShakin within 18 months. It does have an exemption that rural providers can apply for with the FCC to get an extension if they don't have the infrastructure to support it. But if they get that extension, they're required to put in place robocall mitigation solutions to prevent robocalls originating on your network and hitting the PSTN. So it's not just a free pass. There is actually things you have to implement in order to get that extension. So I would be happy to talk to any of you in more detail about our solutions in this space and what we can do for that. To help you with your business customers, Ribbon offers a comprehensive network orchestration solution comprised of our EdgeView Service Control Center, which is used to provision, configure, and manage the edge solutions, as well as our Edgemarc intelligent edge devices to actively monitor, secure, and optimize service quality. These platforms have been deployed in tier 1 service providers all the way down to very small service providers and greatly expand the visibility you have all the way down to the devices on the enterprise network. And for operators interested in expanding their service offering in or out of territory, Ribbon's Candy platform provides a cloud-based solution for business or residential customers. This can be used to deliver service inside your territory where maybe you want to replace the offering that you have. Maybe you're really small and they're saying, hey, I don't necessarily want to maintain my own soft switch anymore and I just want to move it to a cloud model. Or we have customers that are using this as a CLEC offering outside of their territory for both residential and business subscribers. And then finally, Ribbon Protect offers network-wide analytics, fraud protection, TDOS mitigation, as well as visualization of important data in your network. Initially, it pulls all the information from the SBCs and the other SIP components in your network, but as Lee had mentioned, we are integrating that with the C15 where it will pull information out directly early next year to really deliver a complete end-to-end view of your network. So again, we have ongoing investments that we're making not only in the C15, but in solutions that leverage that C15 to expand service into your network. We'll be happy to have follow-up presentations or discussions with any of you on these solutions and how they apply to your network. So this wraps up the content for today's presentation. I'm going to hand it back over to Paul and we can run through some of the questions that were submitted.
Hey, thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it.
So Paul, there's a number of questions here I'd like to answer if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So several questions came in. Let me crawl through these. How will StarShakin work on the C15? I went over that, and we will provide the slides after this. And if anybody has any more questions about it, you can certainly contact your salesperson. They can go over it with you in detail. There was a question about upgrades. You can always do a 2-release upgrade. You can go from 14 directly to release 16. However, you can't do a 3-step upgrade. That require a 3-hop upgrade. That would require 2 steps. So the specific question was about release 14. Yes, it's absolutely fair game to go from 14 straight to 16. Okay. There was a question about the SIP enhanced 911 location. That is only for SIP. It doesn't work with SS7 at this point. And there was a question about PSX supported. That is supported within the overall Ribbon support team. It's not supported directly by the C15 team. And one more I want to go to here is there's a question about StarShakin or nuisance call mitigation with non-SIP trunk groups. And that's a really interesting question. We realize that the majority of trunk groups are TDM still. And just yesterday I was in a discussion about ways that we could maybe do something about that. So the answer to the question, are there any options being developed? There's discussions being had of things that could be done there. There's no requirements for it yet. There's no mandate for that yet, but it's certainly a topic of discussion. We're trying to figure out if there's something that we could do that is similar to StarShakin that would be useful for TDM calls.
Yeah.
All right,
Hey,
I'll
Lee,
hand it to you, Paul.
Hey,
Yeah.
Lee, there was another question there, and you mentioned it in the presentation. They were asking, Tom was asking, is there a checklist on how to implement StarShakin on the network? Is that in the new releases technical documents, or is there?
So on the C15, we put in a section, an MOP section, describing how to configure the C15 for StarShakin. As far as a network level solution, the C15 doesn't address that. When you talk to your salesperson or sales engineer, they can address the more network level. Our documentation, the C15, addresses our component of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hey, a couple more came in, Lee, there at the end.
Yeah, so the question about IPv6, the C15 is going to support IPv4, and our expectation is that if you need IPv6, that an SBC would provide that.
Okay.
And the question, Bill and Mark, attestation. So with release 17, the C15 will provide the rig ID as part of the tagging. It will not be managing the headers. It will not be managing the certificate. That's still done by a verification server or an authentication server, and that's not the function the C15 does.
All right. So one more came in from Mike there. Is there a charge to activate the StarShakin feature?
Elizabeth, I will hand that to you as a sales team.
That's a good question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what we can do is we can make sure everyone understands what it takes to implement StarShakin in your network and any respective, charges that are tied to that. We have worked to make sure it is reasonable for our overall U.S. regional and North America regional deployed C15 customers. So hopefully no big surprises there.
All right. All right. Well, that looks like the bulk of the questions there. I did want to tell our audience that just there on the right-hand side of your interface, there's a little document icon, and from there you can download. We posted a couple documents for you, the ribbon escalation list and our new support 5.0 document. So you might want to grab those before we end the webinar. And also, we'll be sending out a PDF version of these slides to everyone who's registered for the webinar. So we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of this. And Elizabeth, in that survey, you asked a few questions about future webinars. So we wanted to make sure everybody took a look at that survey, because that'll help us determine what we should provide next and what should be. I think included that was a deeper dive into StarShakin. So make sure you give us feedback on what you're interested in, what topics you're interested in for our upcoming webinars. Was there anything else, Elizabeth, or can we wrap it up?
Nope, I just want to say thank you all for attending. It looks like we got past 100, and definitely appreciate everyone joining and participating. If you had peers that were not able to make it, go ahead and get them to register on I think that original link, right, Paul? And they'll get a copy of the recording. Yeah, they'll get a copy of the recording for sure. Yep. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.